let's get started. And today's going to be fun. It's going to be different. You may want to grab something that you can write on. I used to say a pencil and paper. Now it's like grab your iPad or your computer, get ready to take some notes. We're going to be digging in, and what I want us to really, by the end of this workshop, is to understand what a healthy brain, gut, and immune system look and feel like. Now, I've already given a lot of information on my Facebook page, Instagram, my YouTube. You can go and look about what normals are. I talk a lot about something may be common, but it's not normal. So if you're not quite sure about that, go back and look at that. Also, I just finished a free 3-part My Big Health series. And if you want the link for that, ask my team, they'll drop it in the chat, get back to us. And I just want you to know that there's a lot out there for you to explore what normal is. Now, today, we're going to go a step further. And I'm going to have you diagnose yourself in the 3 areas of brain, health, and immune system. That's why I'm saying grab that way of taking some notes, because I'm going to be asking you some questions. And I want to give you time to really analyze a truthful answer from yourself of how you are answering those questions. You may want to write them down for later, because that will help you decide on the appropriate test that you may want to run. Okay, so write down your answers or keep them in your head, either way, but I will be asking you to really know which areas you're struggling in the most. Some you may not even realize until I ask you the questions. And then we will go into the second section. So we'll spend about an hour doing that, really diagnosing, learning how to diagnose yourself. The second section, I'm going to introduce you to my favorite test. This list that we're talking about, the coveted my favorite test list, you'll be able to get and how to order them. But I'm also, as I'm going through those labs and tests, I'll be talking about how you may want to think through which ones that you want to order. I'll be doing a deeper dive on that in a future workshop, where we'll literally spend time together. You'll have this information that you're putting together today. You're going to diagnose yourself, know where you need some help, and then we will work together in that future workshop of making sure you're ordering the appropriate test in the appropriate order. So you're not just doing all of them. It's too expensive. And which ones you can get under insurance right now. And another thing that I'll be giving you today are a few easy, no cost suggestions for each of those areas. So for your brain, immune, gut, things that you can try. If you decide I don't want to do any tests, that's fine. I'll give you some hints of some things to try. All right. So now our goal, again, is to gain clarity of where you really are with your brain, your immune, and your gut health. Where are they? So it's time to be brutally honest with yourself. No excuses. I've actually laughed for years saying I need to write a book that says this is your fault, because the majority of diseases and problems that we suffer through can be prevented and can be even treated with natural means, with lifestyle changes and things that we can do. There are a few things that are outside of your control, but most are. So let's be honest with ourselves today. And if you're answering a question and I ask something and you say, oh, well, my family has all that. We have cancer going through it. We have immune system issues. We have autoimmune. We have Alzheimer's. We have gut issues and heart disease. I'm going to tell you right here, right now, you are not your DNA. That is only a blueprint. Let me say it again. You are not your DNA, regardless of what you see going through your family. The expression of those genes is what we're working on. How do we downregulate, quiet the bad genes, and upregulate the good ones that protect us? So let's start with a few general questions until I get to the exact sections of brain, immune, and gut. So start your analysis now. This is your self-diagnosis time. I reward you for taking your time today for yourself to really, really dig in. You don't wait for a doctor to run some regular lab work and tell you everything's fine. And you're saying, but I don't feel fine. I know something is off. This is your time to become your own doctor right here. So first question, are you taking any medications? If you are, how many? And the biggest question is, do you know why you're taking them? People come to me in my office and they have a long list of medications. And I say, why are you on this? And they say, well, I don't remember. I'm not sure. Then I ask, are they helping you? Do you know that medication is helping? You can tell a difference. So those are the questions you need to ask yourself. Do you understand why you're on them? How many? Now, some of you may be asking, well, what's the average number of medications that a typical adult is taking? It's shocking to me, but the average number is 4. That means some people are less and some people are far more. You have not gotten to the root of the problem and fixed the problem if you're on those average 4 medications. Some of those medications you're taking because of the side effects from the original medications. This is what we're trying to get out of. And for you to know, 131 million Americans take at least one prescription medication. Now, the next is you go, well, I'm congratulating myself. I'm not on any medicines. Now, I'm not saying you don't need them. Please always talk to your doctor, make sure, but you need to find out why you're on them. The next is you congratulate and say, I'm not on any medicines. I take supplements instead. How many supplements are you taking? Same questions. Do you have an actual reason for taking it? And you understand them, or did you just read somewhere that if you have this symptom, take this, and now all of a sudden you're on bags of supplements? My patients come in, they're on their first visit, and I say, bring all your supplements in, and I cannot believe the suitcases that sometimes get brought in. That has to go through your liver and kidney. Supplements, just because they are natural, are not necessarily healthy. You need to know why you're on them. Do you really need to be on them? And have you tracked your symptoms? Do you know they're helping? If you don't know they're helping, stop and see, and then bring them back in, and then you can tell. The next thing about supplements, have you taken the time to check the quality? Now, you're doing all these wonderful things for yourselves. You're taking supplements, but if they're not quality, if you do not have a certificate of analysis to know that there's no lead, arsenic, molds, bacteria, other things in that supplement that shouldn't be there, I'd rather you be on nothing. So ask yourself, do I know that everything I'm putting in my body, from a medication to a supplement, has been tested? It's good for me. I know it. I can feel it. And it's actually working. Ask yourself in general, how's your diet right now? How are you doing? Are you doing your very best, or are there just too many cheat days and emotional eating? How's your exercise or your movement level? Can you do better? Can you do something more than what you are right now? And a big one is, what's your stress level? You may have been under stress for 5 years. You're in that sandwich where you've got a younger person, younger than you, that you're taking care of, a child or a family member, and someone older. That sandwich generation where we're taking care of both ends, there's a lot of stress for a long period of time. Or are you just now, in the last week or today, having a lot of stress? Look at that. How do you know if it's really, really getting to you before you have some diseases that may show up later? Are you dizzy or lightheaded when you stand up quickly? That's a sign of adrenal fatigue, and we'll go into more on that in a little bit. So here we go. Let's get ready. We're going to dig in, top it. We're going to start at the top. We're going to talk about the brain, then we're going to talk about your immune system, and then your gut. So number one question with brain, how is your memory? Are you forgetting where the keys are more often than you used to? Names, you can't pull a word. You know what you want to say, but you can't pull that word. Very important. Is this new to you in the last few months or the last few years, or have you always had problems with remembering people's names? 1 to 10, you rate yourself. On a good day, how on a good day is your brain wiring and firing? Your memory is good. And on a bad day, how bad does it get? And if you made any connections with the amount of sleep that you did or did not get, the food you ate, the stress you went through, and the exercise that you either over-exercised or you didn't exercise enough. Have you made a connection with your memory with those things? Number two, cognition. What is cognition? It's defined as the mental action or a process where you acquire knowledge. You're learning something new and you're understanding it. And it could be through your thoughts, could be through an experience you did or your senses, but how is your cognition? Are you really able to learn and assimilate things as well as you would like? Take a minute to think about that. Memory, cognition so far. And don't give yourself the excuse, well, I'm getting older. It's just going to happen. That's common. It's not normal. I've got I've got patients and people I work with and clients over 100 years old that are sharp as the day that they first came into this world. So common is not normal. Next, these things are intimately involved with your brain. How is your vision? Now, if it's just you need some readers, you need some things, that's okay. But if you've had recent vision changes or hearing loss or balance issues or even smell issues that you know haven't been caused by a virus or other things, if those sensory things are starting to suffer, they are tied to your brain health. Take, for instance, hearing. We know now if you have hearing loss and you put on hearing aids, it actually helps the brain not have to work so hard. And it's more of a brain issue sometimes than it is a damage to the eardrum. Next one, how are you listening? Are you listening to others? Do you have the patience you need? And do you have the attention span? Now, remember, is this new? Is this something that's getting worse, or have you always been that way? How is your attention span? Next one, is your brain wiring and firing? Do you feel smart? Do you feel like you can connect the dots? Or are you slow on connecting things right now? Are you having trouble organizing things, organizing your house, your meals, yourself, your calendar? How is that going for you? Next, let's talk a little bit about focus. Are you distracted? Are you becoming more distracted? Is it due to stress in your life? Is it due to that you're ill? What is it? How is that brain doing with your focus? Let's talk a little bit about emotions, depression and anxiety. Do you feel overwhelmed with your emotions? Are you overwhelmed with it? Or any other mental disorder? I don't like labels. I don't like the word bipolar. I don't like the word because I don't think we've narrowed down those definitions enough in psychiatry to start labeling people. But in general, not feeling emotionally sound. How are you with that one? Take a moment and think about that. Next, are you losing your train of thought? You're in the middle of talking about something and you say, well, I forgot what I was talking about. Now, we've all heard people do that and say that. We've all said it ourselves. But again, we're back to, was it a bad night's sleep last night, or you're under a lot of stress, or is this something that's sneaking up on you? Do others around you notice that your memory is not as good, your cognition isn't great? Is it as good as it used to be? Or others starting to notice and say things to you? For your brain health, are you yo-yo dieting? Not good. It is far better to be a little overweight or underweight and slowly make those changes than going up and down. That has been linked clearly with brain health. Do you have good relationships? Do you feel happy? Many studies show us that if you have a good support system around you, it helps your brain health. It helps your overall longevity, but we're on the brain section now. Do you have good relationships around you? Do you get 7 to 8 hours of good sleep a night? How do you know if it's good? You wake up ready to go. Are you getting the appropriate amount of sleep? Now we're going to do something fun. Part of the diagnosis part. I asked you questions now, and you answered those with honesty. And you're going to know the areas that maybe you might be struggling with or you're seeing a decline in, and you don't like that. Right now, we're going to take our pulse. So take the tip of your index finger and your third finger and go to the other hand, and you're going to put it right between your wrist bone and the tendon that's on your thumb side. So right in this section a little bit. Now don't just apply just enough pressure so you can feel each beat, right? If you can't get it here, try it up here, right here between the front of your neck and where that big muscle comes, right in here. Just slight pressure. Don't push too hard or you'll obstruct the blood flow. And what we're going to do is we're going to time it. I'm going to ask you to start counting your beats. So keep trying to find it. I'm going to ask you to time it. I'm going to put my timer on and I'm going to say start, and then I'm going to say stop. And I want you to write down the number, and then we're going to calculate it. And I'm going to tell you what that means for your brain health. All right. So let me take a look here and see. I think I see people still trying to get their pulse. So let's wait just a minute. Find that pulse. We want to know what it is, or if you have a device at home, let's do it too. You put your finger in it. So let's try to see, is your heart rate too slow or too fast? So here we go. Get ready. And I'm going to say start. Ready, start. Keep counting. Just do your best. Keep counting. Almost done. Stop. Now, write down that number and multiply it by 2. So in other words, double it. That will give you how many beats per minute that you have in a minute. Okay. So if you didn't get it, it's okay. You can play with this and do this later, and you've got your own timers to do. But here's what you need to know about your brain health and that pulse. If your pulse rate was greater than, well, let's say take it and double it. If your heart rate was more than 80 beats per minute, more than 80, then studies are showing that you may have a 28% more increased risk of dementia compared to those who had a beats per minute under 60. If it's over 80, it can affect your brain. And we need to figure out why it's over 80 and get that pulse rate down. Well, that's for future that we'll be talking about those things. But if it's higher than 80, not good. Now, those with a heart rate of 70 beats per minute and greater also showed a steeper decline in cognition. So dementia risk, if you're over 80, cognition, wire and fire, learning new things, if you're over 70. And you've got to know what's your natural state. How were you as a child? You know, have you always had a fast heart rate? Have you always run high speed? Or is this something new or something that's getting worse for you? And we need to dig into why. But it's the progression and new that I really want you to know about. So you've diagnosed yourself in your brain here. I see a lot of people working. I'm going to give you a few more minutes to keep thinking about this. Where are your areas of most struggle right now? Memory, relationships, patience, focus, wiring and firing. Where is the brain struggling? And think about and this is, remember, for us to take this information and think about what test may be applicable later that you may want to do to find the root of the problem. Now, a few little hinters that you can try right now for all of those, whether you take a test or not. A couple of easy things, no cost. Right now, 30 minutes a day of exposure, to both sunlight and moonlight. That resets your internal clock. Your body knows when it's supposed to be awake and when it's supposed to be sleeping. It will help your sleep and it helps your brain. Can you commit to 30 minutes a day of exposure to the sunlight and the moonlight. You need your body to be connected to those two things, and it can help your brain immensely. That doesn't cost anyone anything. Now, if you ask me, I'm in Seattle and we don't have sun. They have lamps and things that you can buy to try to get it, right? But all of you, unless it's a super cloudy night, can still go out there and get that moon exposure. And even if it is cloudy, those moon, that gravitational pull is still there. It will still help you. Another thing that doesn't cost anything, you all have music that you love. You all know this. You can listen to music 1 hour before bed. Now, you don't have to sit and listen. You're just going to put it on and kind of set the stage for your brain to go from busy daytime to slow, orderly rhythms where it can calm down. Now, the tempo of that music should be slow, around 60 beats per minute. It should be slow with not a lot of melody, not words, people singing. You go, I like that part, or you want to start singing with it. That's going to defeat the purpose. It needs to be ambient type music where it's just slowly letting your body and your brain say, I should be getting ready for sleep. And it will help you for a deeper sleep, and it helps your body, your brain detox, which we know happens when you're asleep. Those are very important for brain. Two things, right? Sunlight, moonlight, music before sleep. And then we'll talk about some tests later. All right. So that is our brain section, an important one. Let's move on and keep your notes. Let's go to the immune system. Here are the questions to ask yourself to diagnose without a test. How often do you get a cold, a flu, or a virus? How often? In a year? In a year. How many times in a year? Now, people who say I never get sick, I'm a little bit of concern about, because your immune system should be fighting. You're all exposed to bacteria and viruses and things. We should be at least once a year fighting off something that tells me the immune system's strong enough to fight. If it's not fighting and you never get sick, I'm a little concerned about that. The next is, how long does it last? If you get a cold or a flu, do you kick it in 2 to 3 days? You get a big, strong fever and you let it ride, because that is one of the body's best ways of fighting off things, is with the fever? Or do you say, oh, I'm uncomfortable, and you take something to take the fever down, but it drags on? Your illness, you feel weak, you don't feel good for 5 to 7 days. That's too slow. That's too long. I want you to tell me, I get sick maybe once, twice a year, maybe, and I kick it in 2 days, 3 days, and my body is strong and at it, and I know. And that means you've got to take it easy, lay down, and do what you're supposed to do when you're sick, right? Eat chicken soup, drink lots of water, and rest so the body's immune system can kick in. So how long do your illnesses last? Do you have recurrent infections? You get upper respiratory, sinus infections? Do you get urinary tract infections? Do you have skin issues? Constant little places that are possibly an immune reaction. And it doesn't mean it's an infection necessarily. It means that your gut's not working well, which means your immune system's not working well. And now you have psoriasis and eczema and other things. Are you getting recurrent infections? And again, don't think it's common. Doesn't everybody get a sinus infection once in a while? No, that should be rare. Should be rare. Do you have a history of cancer yourself or family members? Now, remember, I talked at the beginning, you are not your DNA, but that is a blueprint. So when we're looking deeply at your immune system, you want to be asking yourself, do I have a real history, family history of a strong family history of cancer? Or do I have a history of cancer? And if you go, oh, it was just one of those things the dermatologist burned off, even if it's just basal cell or squamous cell, those are still cancers and they need to be paid attention to. Your body is sending you a signal that something isn't right. Do you have a lot of stress? Do you eat a lot, do you have a lot of stress? That really decreases the immune system. It plays into a lot of pathways that I've talked about in the past in other workshops of why that is. But we know that if you're constantly under stress, that will decrease the ability of your immune system to fight. So where's your stress level? Do you sweat at night? Perimenopausal women, okay, if you're having hot flashes, we know what that is, and we'll talk about hormones in a little bit. But if it's not during that time period, are you sweating at night? Is that new? Is it because the room's too hot? Cool the room off, which helps you sleep better. But if it's not, that is something you need to pay attention to. Do you eat a lot of sugar? Are you just hooked on sugar? Eating a teaspoon of sugar can decrease your immune system for hours. Now you're a sitting duck for catching things, right? Next, have you ever tested positive for viruses like human papillomavirus? That's if you had an abnormal pap, or in men, they have other areas of the body that affects. Have you ever tested positive for papillomavirus, cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus? Those are the chronic fatigue viruses. Those are the ones that cause you to be tired all the time. They're cousins of mononucleosis. And have you tested positive for that? What about herpes, simplex 1 and 2? Those are viruses that tax our immune system. They keep our immune system busy all the time. Therefore, it's not able to really go after the things that we want it to go after, right? What about those? Do you have any of those lurking viruses? How is your energy level throughout the day? Do you have stomach issues? Because 70% or more of your immune system is located in your digestive tract. So if you're having GI issues, your immune system is going to be decreased. And how is your energy level? Many things affect that, but that's a good sign of when you have good energy and you wake up and you're ready to go, that I'll bet that for the most part, your immune system is good. Also, new studies, we've known with the microbiome, those are the bugs in the gut system and in the immune system and in the brain. We have those bugs all over, but we knew that vitamins from the microbiome, so your nutrition, whether you're taking a supplement or you're getting it from foods, those vitamins create their own way of helping the microbiome make its ability to help you with diabetes risk, immune system, all of that. So energy is a good way to ask yourself. Another question, are your wounds slow to heal? Again, rethinking about, is it new? Is it getting worse? But are they slow to heal? Are you sensitive to chemical smells, candles, perfumes? These have to do with environmental exposures in your life. You may be high in lead, other things, but that's a key one when we start talking about some of these tests. But are you sensitive to chemical smells? Do you have unusual perspiration? You either have more than other people around you, less. Does it smell bad? Is there a lot of it? And does it happen at inappropriate times? That can be the immune system talking to you and giving you a signal. Do you have any hair loss? That could be thyroid. And again, we'll tie that back in a minute, but are your hands cold? Are your hands and feet cold? Are you losing some hair? Good question to ask yourself about immune system. Next is, some of you are asking, well, what about if I have autoimmune? Autoimmune is when the immune system's turned on too much. It's working too fast and hard, and it's attacking itself. It's very confused. It doesn't know that I need to be attacking a bacteria that I just got exposed to, as opposed to, oh, that's me. So it just attacks everything. And that's what autoimmune does. And it's really your body attacking itself. Do you have autoimmune diseases? That includes MS, pernicious anemia, can be rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's syndrome, lupus, and even type 1 diabetes. The common symptoms for autoimmune are fatigue, joint pain, and skin problems. That's not all of them, but those are common symptoms. So if you have some of those symptoms, you need to be looking a little closer at your immune system. Okay. I see people still writing and doing. This is good. You guys are digging in deep. I love it. All right. Now, couple things to try for free. And what I will say, you tried these things. If all those questions get better and your answers are better, why spend the money on the test unless you just want to know or you're into prevention? So this is why I'm giving you a couple of free things to try before you decide to go into testing. First one, for immune system, stand up. That means don't sit longer than 50 minutes at a time. If you have to set an alarm on your phone because you're reading a great book or you sit at the computer too much, set it. Do not sit longer than 50 minutes at one time. You need to be moving or at least standing up. Okay. That doesn't cost you anything. That's just discipline. All right. Another couple is you could try a different nutrition plan. So if you had a lot of answers in the immune system section that you're like, well, that wasn't very good. Well, I'm not doing well there, or I have this or that. You could try a different nutrition plan. If you say, well, listen, I do, plant-based only, and I do this. Well, I'm going to say, how's that working for you? Maybe it is. But if you answered those questions in a way that you say, my body is giving me signals and signs, and I'm not listening, and I'm just reading something that I'm supposed to eat this way, it may not be working for you. So try a different nutrition plan. Mediterranean is a great diet. The green Mediterranean diet now is green tea and Mediterranean eating with the vegetables and the good oils and the fish. All those things support your immune system. You could try the ketogenic diet, which is showing very strong in immune system health. Or you could switch to or from vegetarianism. A lot of people do vegetarianism and vegan for different reasons, but there's a lot of anemia that comes out of that sometimes, and you've got to be careful. Asking, is your immune system, your white blood cells, do you have a good level? Do you even know what that is? We'll talk about that in the testing section. But if the immune system is struggling, switch it up. Another great one that I love to tell people about, it's actually called forest therapy. Everybody's trying to come up with great names for things, but it's nature cure, old nature cure. Walking in the forest or in trees and in a beautiful place 2 times a week, just 2 times a week. You can do that, guys. You can commit to that. Get out there in nature. That will increase and help your immune system. All right. And I know some of you are probably having questions that you're going to want to ask me in the Q&A, and that's great. That's at the end of all this. But if you don't, just try these suggestions first. Try these and see how you do. But don't think that you can't get to me. You can. We'll get to the bottom of questions that you have. Now, gut health. Health begins in the gut, whether it's your immune system, your brain, your joints, you name it, it all relates and begins back to the gut health. It's very important. Okay. So questions to ask you about your gut health that you are going to diagnose yourself. What's your current weight right now? What is it right now? Kind of. So to be exact, what was it a year ago? What was it a year ago? What has been your maximum weight as an adult? How much have you let your weight get out of control if you have? How much was that maximum level, right? And what's your minimum weight as an adult? What was the least amount that you weighed? Now, some of you who are clients and patients of mine know that when you came in on your intake with me, I asked you some of these same questions, but it may have changed now, right? Especially the year, where is your current weight? So still answer them. These are important. Now, the most important question is, what is your desired weight? Where do you feel good? I don't care what your BMI says, which is a bad marker. I don't care that people want you to look a certain way. That's all not good. Where do you feel good? What do you think your magic number is, where you have your brain, your immune, and your gut health, and your joints, and your energy level, your sleep? Where's your magic number? Now, if you're not at that good magic number where you want to be, what do you attribute? Do you know why you had a loss or a gain? Was it due to you changed your exercise or your movement routine? Was it your diet? You know, people come in and say, well, I gained 10 pounds. And I said, well, okay, if you were exercising the same amount, and you changed your diet, you were eating more, you ate other things, or your stress level was super high, where you're holding on to belly fat because of cortisol, that's the reason for the weight loss or weight gain. It can go either way. If we have a cancer on board, we have to work hard to try to keep weight, muscle weight on. So be thinking about, what have you changed? And have you changed anything? If not, you may need to do some testing to find out why these things are happening. Next, do you have any skin issues? That's eczema, psoriasis, itchy patches, red, weird bumps, things that the dermatologist says, well, I don't know, here's a corticosteroid cream, put it on and I hope it goes away. We're trying to find the root of the problem. Your body is sending you a signal. If your skin is not good, it may be wrinkly and dry. It may be, you're saying it's going south quickly. It's not just lumps and bumps. When we're in embryo, when you are just forming, literally that embryo flips wrong side out. So it's inside out is what I should say. And what does that mean? Your skin cells are the same skin cells that are lining your gut. So if your gut is unhappy, your skin's going to be unhappy. And if you've got skin things going on and you go, well, I think my gut's okay, I will tell you, I'll bet it's not. Even if you don't have major symptoms in your GI, you still probably have a GI or a microbiome, something going on in that gut. Do you have skin issues? Now, look at your nails. If you have your fingernails done, try to pretend and remember what they look like with all the junk on them. So, do you have vertical ridges, the ridges that go up and down? Are they nice and smooth across the top, shiny and smooth, or do you have a bunch of these vertical ridges? Do you have any horizontal lines that are white that go across this way? Any of those white? Now, if you slammed your finger in something, you're going to have some damage there. Don't count that. Talking about without damage, do you have any ridges in those nails? Are your hormones balanced? Are you having trouble balancing your hormones? A lot of times that goes back to gut health, not just hormones. So how are your hormones doing right now? Do you have problems with gas? So that is upper and lower. Again, common is you overeat once in a while, or you eat something you know that bothers you and you may burp or you may have a few toots. That's normal. But what's not normal is that it's common, that almost every day or most days of the week, you're burping and you're tooting. Common, not normal. There's a problem. Your body is sending you a sign that's kind of it's hard to ignore those things. You can't ignore a burp or a toot, especially in public. So there's a problem there. Do you feel bloated? Do you feel after you eat, you just kind of, people say, I feel like I puff up. I can actually see my stomach puff up. Are you bloated? Do you feel full after you eat? You eat a normal amount and you just feel overly full. You're not digesting your food, those kinds of things. Do you have problems with that? Most people try to ignore that. They just go, oh, it just happens. It happens to me. No, these are signs that we do not want to ignore. Do you have at least one good bowel movement a day? If you've watched any of my prior things, you know, good bowel movement, about from your wrist to your elbow, medium brown color. It's formed into a log. It doesn't smell bad. It's easily passed. That's a normal bowel movement. So do you have one of those, at least one of those a day? Do you often have diarrhea? How often? Now, if you eat out once in a while and you ate at a restaurant and you got diarrhea within 30 minutes to an hour, we know what it was. It was a bacteria in the food. Don't worry about that. Don't go back to that restaurant, right? But if you have diarrhea fairly often, that's a sign. Do you have blood or mucus showing in your stool? When you look down, now, red, bright blood is usually from hemorrhoids. We don't worry too much. But if your stool is black, if it is dark, that's a cause. That is a sign we do not ignore. If you have mucus showing, that's telling you have inflammation going. So signs. Rectal itching, especially at night. Do you have any rectal itching? Do you have internal or external hemorrhoids? That's something that needs to be fixed. That tells me the vascular walls are weak, and that's not just causing hemorrhoids, that's making you more at risk cardiovascular wise as well. So internal, external hemorrhoids. Do you ever have long, thin, narrow stools? They look like pencils or a little bit bigger. Do you have that? Are they yellow or light colored? They should not be. Do they smell really bad? Well, sometimes you eat something, you know it's going to happen, but most of the time they should not smell bad. So when somebody comes into the bathroom after you were in there, you're not saying, you might want to wait a minute, right? They really shouldn't smell bad. That tells me how you're breaking them down. Did you ever get sick when you were traveling or camping? I don't care if it was 10, 15 years ago. Did you have an illness, a stomach virus especially, or a parasite that you might have picked up years ago? Now, here's the physical part. You guys are becoming your own physical medicine doctors, doing your own physical exam. Now, take your fingers, both of them, and I want you to start at the top of your stomach. I'm going to stand up here. So your stomach's way up here underneath your breastbone. And I want you to push right there. Pretty deep, push in there. Is that tender? If that's tender, it should not be. Now, I want you to take your fingers and I want you to start going in little circles, and I want you to go all the way around your stomach. Start on the right side, which is your ascending colon. Do little circles, start low, start above your little pubic bone there, and do all the little areas and see, are there any tender places? That's great. I see some people standing up. That's great. Sitting's kind of hard. You can stand up or lay down, but start checking yourself. Go up the right side, over in the middle, and down. Check all of that area. If there's anything you can feel, something that is hard, that is not normal. There should not be a hard there. Could be you haven't had a bowel movement today. Maybe there's a little chunk there, but you got to make sure that goes away if you're feeling it after a bowel movement. If you are tender, it should not be tender. Should not be. There's an issue. Your body is telling you something. Okay. Now, what are the few things that we can do? I'm excited to get to the testing in a minute for you guys too, because that's a lot of information there. And but the things that you can do for your gut health right here, right now. Now, I think this is interesting because somebody, as you guys were signing up for this, and we had like thousands of people, I thought, well, this is good. People want to know about their brain, immune, and gut. Is that when they were signing up, somebody got a thread going about, she said she had been helped by making her own, I think it was kefir. And everybody on the thread said, how do you do it? How do you make it? It was a big to-do. I think it's still going on that thread. Now, I want to warn that you've got to do it right, because if you don't prepare it correctly, any of these fermented food things, you can grow some bacteria there that could be very dangerous for you. So you must do it right. I have to stress that. But if you could eat, whether you make your own or not, if you could eat fermented food 3 times a week. So that's yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi. There are other fermented foods. Can you just 3 times a week put on your calendar, on your to-do list, try to eat fermented food 3 times a week? Now, if you have a problem with them, you're going to know. But if you don't, that's helping your microbiome get better. Those are easy. That doesn't cost you anything. It's just food. You're already making or buying food. Now, the next one, this sounds so simple, but I wonder how well you're doing it. Many of you may need to drink more water. Some of you may actually need to drink less water, because there's such a thing as water toxicity, which means you're drinking too much and you're just flushing out the minerals that your body needs. So I'm going to go over in a minute kind of how you should calculate this for yourself and give you time to do it. But most of you will probably need to drink more water. In general, you should try to drink between half an ounce of water for every pound that you weigh. So let me say that again, half ounce for every pound you weigh. For example, if you weigh 150 pounds, that would be 75 to 150 ounces of water a day. So if we're trying to think through it, 100 ounces is about 12.5 cups. You may have to do your math and your extrapolations later, but around, right, 12 and a half cups of water is good for someone who weighs around 150 pounds. But you can calculate it later. You're your own diagnostician. Too much, like all of these things, moderation is always best. Too much water is not good. Too little, not good. calculate it and at least try to get the minimum amount that you should be getting. That may help your gastrointestinal far more than a lot of other things. And also adequate hydration. New study, it just came out. So we know these things, but it's nice to have a study behind it. But adequate hydration may slow your biological age. So when you go in and you say, I'm 68 years old, whatever you are, and they look at biological age by all these measures that we do, and they say, yo, you're 68, but your biological age is only only, let's say 55, you're doing well. So if you have adequate hydration, that slows that biological aging clock, slows it down. It also reduces your disease risk greatly, greatly. Very, very important to get enough water. All right. So we are ready to go into the next section. I want you to know that I'll be talking about basic tests that you could ask your doctors to do that they should be doing every year. And most of them don't. There's insurance reasons and costs and all that, but you're your own diagnostician. Remember, you're your own best doctor. Your best pharmacy is in your body, and we need to see what that looks like. So I'll be going over that you can get under your insurance, and then I'll be going through my specialty list of labs that I love. Some you can self-order, some you're going to have a doctor for, but we'll go into that. And I'm excited about it because when I introduce you to those tests today, you're probably going to say, well, that would be great. I'd love to do all of them. I'm going to say, no, don't do that. It's too expensive. You may not need them. But what I'll do on the next webinar that we're having is dig in deep with a smaller group of you in saying, let's decide by the symptoms that you were putting down today, what would be the #1 best test for you to try? Start there. If that comes back negative, what would be the next one to try? And I help you. This is what I do with patients all the time, but I'm doing it for you all. And a lot of you are patients and clients. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces here. The ones that are hi, I see waves. You know, I do this with you, but this is a good way for me to reach more people to say, and there's going to be pearls in here that you haven't heard from me either, because, you know, I can't dig into everything. So we'll be going over that. And I'm naming that next thing health trackers, because I want you all to become part of my community, and we're going to call it health trackers. You are your best health tracker. I'm here to educate you, empower you, and enlighten you to say, all right, don't ignore those symptoms and those signs, and you become a health tracker. So I'm going to start calling you trackers at some point. I like that. Everybody has a verb they've used for their group. And I thought that is mostly who listens to me and my patients and clients. You already have a bent to want to find the root of the problem. So that's exciting. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. There you go. Yay. Okay. So what do we want from labs? What do we want to learn from tests? Is it just values of high and low to try to find a disease? No, it's really, our goal is always balance. And many times when we take a test and you do your annual test with your doctor, if nothing is tagging out too high or too low, you're not going to hear about it. They're going to say everything's fine. Everything's fine. I want you to teach you to learn, if you're close to the edges, that's when prevention happens. And even if you're close to the edges, that could be causing your disease or your problems that you're having, the symptoms your body's giving you, because your body might be not okay with 15, whereas the normal is 17 for somebody. You always want to be in the middle. You want your values to be in the middle and balanced. That's important to know. So when you're looking over your lab work that you've done with your traditional doctors over the years, look, where are you? Are you in the middle? Are you really close to the edge? And does that kind of fit as you learn more from me about what these things mean? Because you're a health tracker. I love that. I can't wait to keep saying it. Is that when you know more, then you're going to say, that does fit my symptom. That does fit this sign that I'm having. And then we know what to do with it. So it's about balance. Here's a list of basic labs that I consider all of you should get. Now, let's start here. once, at least once. And that means after you've done these are genetic. Your genes aren't going to change. We don't need to run them again. But MTHFR, that is a methylation gene issue. And that is one of those, I will go ahead and say what a lot of people call that acronym. They call it the mother effer gene because it fits the MTHFR, but because it affects your methylation. What does that mean? That's kind of the wheelhouse that your body uses with most processes that you need to do, whether it's hormones, whether it's getting your vitamins and minerals, you name it, whether it's your immune system, your brain, your immune gut, things we're talking about. Methylation is a big deal. And if you have that gene, we have to be very careful, because if you take the wrong form of folic acid, it can make you worse. But if you get the right kind, it can make wonderful things happen for you in your health. So these are ones. TTGs, just checking you for celiac disease. ApoE, I'll go into that one a little bit more in a minute, but that's a very good, if you have any, even if you don't have family history of dementia and Alzheimer's, ApoE is a good one to do. It tells us a lot of information about you. And 23andMe or some kind of big genetic panel. Now, why? It's not because they're going to tell you a lot about your health. They're not allowed to anymore. It's kind of your family history, and it's interesting. And it'll give you the genes, and you go, what do I do with this? There are programs that we can plug all that data in that will tell us specifically which of those genes we need to pay attention to in you, and what are the clinically tested and trialed lifestyle changes, foods, exercise, nutrition, supplements. What are the things that have been shown to work with that gene? So that's interesting and worth looking at once. Yearly, this should be on your panel. Now, a CBC, Kim with differential, that's that basic blood work, but many of your doctors may only be doing a CBC. That doesn't tell us much. It's not enough. You need to be asking for this. You need to be asking for a hemoglobin A1C that even if you say my blood sugar seems to be okay, my doctor said it was okay, I would say do this at least once, and usually yearly. It gives me a 3-month look of an average of what your glucose has done. Instead of the day you went in to get your test and you were fasting and your glucose looked kind of okay, probably too high in my book many times, but traditional medicine may say it looks okay. But the hemoglobin A1C doesn't let you cheat, doesn't let your food for the few days before. It's a 3-month look. How are you doing? Vitamin D, you all know the reason why. High sensitivity CRP, how much inflammation do you have going on in your body? Maybe it's always been normal, but maybe this year it's not. These need to be run, and your insurance will pay for them. Your doctor just needs to do it. ApoB and lipoprotein A, if you have cholesterol, cardiovascular issues, those are good ones to be tracking every year, especially if they've shown up high. There's a specialty test in a minute that we'll go into that'll give us a lot more, but those are good ones. These are ones, if you have cholesterol and you have these issues, I run them every year or every 6 months, but these top 4 for sure. Cancer markers, you're going to go, why are you running cancer markers? Well, I like having a baseline. CEA and CA125 are the 2 I like to look at. There are many other cancer markers. And if you're working with the doctor and we look at family history, we might add on to that. But for all of you, whether you have cancer in your family or not, now here's a statistic, is that the far majority of breast cancers have no family history. Most cancers are not genetic. They're metabolic by the lifestyle and the things that we're doing. So yes, I like to have this as a marker on everybody that I work with, because if I'm looking at that every few years or every year, if I see a jump, we don't wait to start looking. We don't wait till there's a massive tumor to find something. It's letting us look early. Thyroid panel. Many of you may say, well, they checked my thyroid. This is common for me to hear. They checked and said it was okay. And I look, and all they did was run a TSH. That's just the signal from here. That does not tell me if the thyroid itself is making T4, and if it's converting to T3, the active form, and if you have antibodies, which is autoimmune, that's causing it to have a problem. This is a true thyroid panel. So if the regular one you're getting only is TSH, it is not enough, especially if you have the cold hands and feet and hair loss and energy and fatigue and all the things that come with thyroid and weight issues, worth doing. Hormone panels. I like the hormone panel that I utilize. In fact, let me get my little, there you go. I like the ones I'm going to show you in a minute. But if your doctor will run under your insurance and you think you're having some hormonal issues, or if you have you're going into osteoporosis or osteopenia, bone mineral density, you're having brain fog, cardiovascular issues, things that have to do sometimes with low hormones, at least you would have them run these. Here's the female and here's the male. Okay. So that's that one. I talked about this ApoE genetic test. It's not just looking for Alzheimer's, which is fairly accurate. If you have this gene and you come back with an APO44 and you have a family member, a mother or father, then we need to really start preventing and looking at helping your brain now. Okay. But it also lets us know if you're an APO3 or a 4, it tells me the percentage of exercise, what type of exercise, using resistance or aerobic. It tells me about your diet. It tells me about alcohol. A lot of lifestyle things we can find out from this type of genetic testing, okay, that we can change. But look at this, approximately 45% of individuals carry one or more of these high-risk variants within this ApoE genetic test. That's called prevention, and we need to know about it. Okay. One of the most popular tests, as soon as I talk about it, everybody says, I need to do that test. And you probably do. It's a food sensitivity test. If you look back at my old presentations, you'll know there's a difference between an allergy and a sensitivity. There's a big difference. Allergies, you have anaphylactic, skin immediately run into the bathroom. Those. These are the delayed ones. It's a little bit of a controversial test because the allergists don't believe in it and don't want to do it. Some of your primary carers will say, I've read that it can be helpful, or it might not. So there's a gray area here, but where it's not gray for me, I've run this test for 25, 30 years on my patients, and it's one of the most beneficial things I look at. I have watched it clinically work, and what it's telling you is if you have these foods that you're reacting to, your blood sticks together, it causes inflammation. Inflammation's the root of problems in brain, immune, and gut, and joint, all the other things, but we're on the big topic today, is that these are important. And there's different levels, a 1 through a 4. They're all in red, and there's a program you get put on, you cut them out entirely. If they're a 3 or 4, you decrease them at a 1. So I'll walk you through that in the next webinar type thing to get into the detail. But this is important. If they're in the blue, you got tested and you go, oh, thank goodness, coffee's okay. It's not causing a problem. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt your adrenal glands if too much or too little, but you get to look down here and at least say, these are the foods that don't cause inflammation. And that's an important test for you to know which foods you should and should not be doing. This one, and not just this one, there's other tests, but this is some of the ones that I use. This is looking at that microbiome. We talk about your bugs. We talk about your good bugs versus the bad bugs. The good thing is that we want the more diversity. The more diverse, the more different bugs you have, the better. You get a score. This person, we need to get some more bugs in there. Might be with the diet, with the fermented foods. They might need to be on a probiotic, a specific one. But this lets us know how you are doing. You can see this person is really low in these particular microbiota. So that lets us know detail. And it also looks key findings. We know which ones are too high, which ones are too low. It's a good test. All right. Hold on just a minute. Look like I froze up. There we go. And also, we can look at viruses and different bacterias that may be going on in that gut health. So if your answers weren't, everything's great, everything's perfect in my GI, we might need to consider. And sometimes it's a virus. It's not even a bacteria, right? So I love this. I use this when I lecture on the stage live and people laugh. And I say, well, we talk about parasites and people go, well, I don't have that. I would have a GI symptom. And I go, I did a study with 10,000 known patients with known parasites. We knew which ones they had. And the number 4 symptom was a gastrointestinal symptom, like those questions I ask you. Some of the others were just, I'm fatigued, or my brain doesn't think right. Skin issues. back to the big, right? But this was a real ad, and you'll just have to look at it later. It's very funny, but it was a way of saying no diet, no baths. Back then it was contrast hydrotherapy, and no exercise, no danger. All you need to do was take this can of tapeworms and it would settle everything. Easy to swallow. Look at this. Friends, the parasites, friends for a fair form to lose weight. Yes, they'll help you lose weight, but it's because they're stripping you of your nutrients and things that you need. I do not recommend this, obviously. So how do you know if you have a parasite? You have to do a stool analysis. I was fortunate to study for about 4 years with the leading parasitologist, world leading parasitologist. I know a lot about parasitology, infectious disease, because I studied with him, actually traveled with him and to some bases and some infectious disease. So when I think there's a parasite and you've gone through your traditional testing with a traditional doctor and they did a stool analysis and they go, well, it's not there. I say, okay, if they found something, we'll treat it. But if they say no, I don't believe it, because too many times, many parasites are missed because they're from other countries. They're from different, most of your fruits and vegetables are coming from Mexico, right? So if they don't know how to test for all of it, we could be missing it. This is an actual patient of mine that we found Giardia in. We found out it was actually in their pet, their dog. We had to cure it in the dog or else they were going back and forth. Do you have candida? Is it dividing? Is it active? Are there other yeast? It looks at a lot of things, but all the different types. It'll even catch it. He's so good, he'll catch it in what's called a larva form. It means it's not in a big adult form where traditional tests can catch it. The way he does the testing, I can catch it in a larva. Now, I don't know which one of these roundworms, but I know it's a roundworm. And then we get to know do we have an herbal? Do we have a natural way of killing that parasite? Or do we have to go to a medicine? So this is an important test. Next, I asked you the question about bloating, puffiness, gas. SIBO, small intestine bacterial growth. If you do an endoscopy with your gastroenterologist or a colonoscopy coming from bottom up, they cannot see, it will not diagnose if you've got a bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine. The only way to do this, and you can ask your doctor to order this under insurance, but this is a breath test. If they won't do it, you can order it yourself. Again, this is on the list that you're going to get, but this is looking for methane and hydrogen. And yes, it's methane. That's why smelly, stinky toots and that kind of thing, we can find it. And it also lets us know for you with what they found, what might be the best way of treating. I'll just give a shout out now. We used to do very well naturally with this. And then we found that the bugs, the SIBO, this bacteria had gotten resistant, and we had to start using medications. And a few people, even the medications, it's resistant to, but it's worth looking at. Now, speaking of bacterias, viruses, fungal infections. What happens is if you have an upper respiratory infection or a urinary tract, or you've got something in your ear, if you're lucky, your primary care will actually take a swab, put it in a dish, and they grow it in the lab so that they can see in that dish which antibiotic might work against it. Most of the time you get the guessing game. Oh, it looks like you might have an infection. Let me just put you on this antibiotic. Let's hope it works. If it doesn't, they go to the next one. Now, sometimes it works enough that your symptoms went away, but what you didn't do was kill all of the particular pathogen, and you might have had other ones. So when I start seeing recurrent infections in patients, I start saying we need a PCR analysis. That's a super duper great way of looking deeply into infections. This is a particular patient of mine. The level 1 is kind of in that dish. We found E. coli and Enterococcus faecalis. Now, what's also great, this test tells me which antibiotics will work. And of course, you'd want to choose one that works on both infections, but I'm also looking at it because if you have an integrative doctor, we can look at it and go, okay, this class of antibiotic will work on both of those. And I get to say, take off the antibiotic traditional hat, put away the prescription pad. If I can, what do I have naturally that will work like that antibiotic for these particular things? Now, What we find though, when we go to a level 2, sometimes, oh, sorry, we didn't get it in there. Sorry. The level 2 report sometimes shows as many, I've had as many as 8 other infections. And what that means is, it's telling me that if it's a high level is all that, it's telling me how much. But sometimes whenever we identify one bacteria, then we go, all right, this is how we're going to treat that. But what we missed were all the other bacterias that might have been hanging around. So you got better because we got to the main one, but you got all these others. And that's why you keep getting the infection over and over again. So the level 2, sometimes level 1 will show nothing, or it'll show 1 or 2. And then we go to level 2, and now I've got 8 or 9 that I can see. Recurrent infections, PCR analysis is something we should think about. And these are just things that are tested, bacteria, fungi, and sexually transmitted things as well. And which resistant genes, that means which treatments are not going to work because those bugs are resistant. So why are you getting the recurrent infections? Let's say we found them, we killed them. Why do you keep getting them? We're back to the immune system now. Back to those immune questions you asked yourself. There are many reasons for immune system issues, but one of the biggest ones is unknown deficiencies in your nutrients. Now, I'm not talking about supplements or foods. I'm talking about both, your body. So this test looks at, and I want everybody on the high end. I want everybody up there in the green. So this person wasn't great all the way across, but I want to know that their gut is working well so they can assimilate, break down, and take apart those things that they're eating and supplements they're taking so they can actually work. So this person overall, but what it does, these are all the B vitamins that has to do with your energy, methylation, all kinds of things. Amino acids, these are your proteins. If you're low in certain proteins, what's interesting, it usually fits the symptom. So we say, okay, you're low in phosphatidylserine and you're having a little bit of depression. I go, okay, that fits the symptom. Okay. Other vitamins and minerals, there's your vitamin D and A and all these. But what's interesting is that it's being measured inside your white blood cell, not red blood cell. Remember, red blood cell floating around carries oxygen and iron. White blood cells are your immune system. So we're measuring these nutrients inside your white blood cell. This is testing how it's affecting your immune system. And it tells me your individual antioxidant status, which ones are low. If we need an antioxidant because it's telling me you have a low antioxidant function, then we look up here and say, okay, these are the 3 that are low. I don't think you need to take all 3, maybe only 1. And I would choose one that fits you, what will be best for you overall, right? And this is where you start getting specific. You're getting inside my head, inside a doctor's head that knows how to diagnose and do it right. As you all know, it's pretty hard in an insurance base in a 5-minute visit to go to this level. That's the issue. But these tests exist. You're looking at your fructose sensitivity versus glucose. You may be better off with fruit when you're craving and wanting something along that line if you're not on ketogenic. Or maybe some people are actually better with white cane sugar than they are fruit sugar. Right? And looking for, there's many other things in this test. But I love this too, because we're talking about the immune, that this same test, looking at antioxidant, looking at your immune function. And they look at it in relationship to other people your age. If you're 70, you're supposed to be right here on that green line. If you're lower, that's not great. If you're higher, we get to go, raha, you're doing all the things right. You got a great immune system. So it looks at how your immune system functions. Is it able to adapt? Is it able to not be overreactive into autoimmune? And is it underreactive where it can't fight some infection? So this is a great test as well. Another reason of things that can affect your immune system is heavy metals. So this is a urine test. I won't get into too much detail. I don't want your head to swim too much today. Remember, this is just introducing you. But we do a pre, that means you get up in the morning, we look at first morning urine. I'm looking for, is there anything current? Do you have lead in your pipes at your house? Is there anything that you're currently being exposed to? That's why we do the first test, this. Then I give you, and we look at your kidney to see how it's functioning. Then we give you a chelating agent. That means something you have to take. This one requires a doctor's. But what happens is, this is the same patient. That was her pre, this is her post. When I chelate it and it pulls out of the tissues, that includes the brain, the breast, the prostate, the joints, your fat tissues. When we pull it out of there, now we get to see how you're doing. Look at this person. You're supposed to be under 1.2 for a lead level. She's at 25. Look at this person. She's supposed to be at a 1.3, under 1.3. She's at a 50 in mercury. These are things, and the signs could be fatigue. It could be brain. It could be your immune system. It could be your gut health. All the signs your body is sending you are there for a reason. And sometimes we have to go to these kinds of tests to figure it out. And I will say, most of you that are over 30 years old, you're going to be too high in lead. Don't know how high, hopefully not as high as this person. I've seen people far higher than this, but you're going to be probably a little too high in lead. Is it affecting you and your immune system? That's what you'd have to figure out. Now, stress, let's talk about that. You all know, I talk about it a lot. And when I'm doing a live presentation of this, I say, what are those? Those are your adrenal glands, adrenal, that sit on top of your kidneys. These are the guys that when you are saying there's something wrong, they pump out cortisol, adrenaline, all the strong hormones that keep you, help you take the car off the baby, right? But they are not supposed to be there all the time in long run. And some of the things that you've got to know about this, and I'll get into the tests that we like to look at, is that your adrenal glands, when you're telling them something is wrong and that you're in survival mode, they do not know the difference between you're being chased by this or this. They don't know the difference. They don't know that you're here. And God forbid you have one of these at home, right? So I wish I could hear the laughter. I always get laughter on this one. But the point is, your adrenal glands don't know the difference. They just know you're telling them you need to be in survival mode. Now, how do we know where you are? Testing again. So this is a salivary spit test. And so you're supposed to be between these two black lines. This is an example of somebody who's not too bad. They're waking up a little bit stressed. It's a little bit high, the blue, but you're supposed to go up within the first 30 minutes. You're supposed to go up a certain percentage. It's called the awakening response. That lets me know how those adrenal glands are doing. You're supposed to go up and then calm down through the day. Come down in the afternoon and be down at night. I have many patients that come in, they're flatline. Their blue line is all the way down at the bottom. There's no response. There's no up and down. There's just nothing left. I have others that are up here. They're running high in their sleep and all day, and they just haven't crashed yet. So it's about the pattern. And this is a great test to think about. Another one, if you're wondering about your glucose, if you're wondering about how you're going to get that hemoglobin A1C down, ask your doctor to prescribe this. It's called a continuous glucose monitor. Little thing, little round tab, this right here. You poke it, you do it yourself. You just go like this, poke. It's a little tiny needle. It doesn't hurt. You poke it on you. It attaches to your phone, and you get to look and see what you're eating, how you're exercising, what the stress is doing, and what's that doing to your glucose. It's called a continuous glucose monitor, and all the athletes wear them. And a lot of the, biohackers, people that are really, really, really love to track everything about their health, they do this. But I think everybody should do this at least once. So you show yourself as your own health tracker what's going on with your glucose, with your lifestyle. Love this one. If you've got cardiovascular issues, whether you're on a statin or not, or your cholesterol's high, or you're wondering if it is, if you go in, traditional testing is going to look for good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, and the ratio between the two. That's it. If you have an LDL, bad cholesterols, look how many different ones there are. These are all different ones that get lumped into one big number. So what I like to know is, which one is it? Which ones? And if it's these, then we would treat them differently than if it's these. So, and I'll show you a chart in a minute, but it also looks at other things. Your insulin, how's that playing into your heart, your cardioreactive protein, that's inflammation, and looking at other kind of markers. So it digs in deep. It digs in deep to be able to see. All right, so hold on a little bit. There it goes. Once we have that information, we go to a chart like this. Let's just take one for instance, LP little a. So you heard that you need to be on a cholesterol medicine, and you heard that your overall cholesterol is too high and the bad guy is too high. But if it's this one or this one, if we look up here, diet and lifestyle won't do anything. Let me start here. Little or no effect with the square. If it's a negative effect, you can see that hormones sometimes can work against you. It's an X, but we want at least 2 hearts to make a good change. If you have the 2 bad guys, and this is one of the worst ones, it's been proven to be intimately tied with heart disease, heart attack, stroke, all the bad things with heart. These are bad guys. What is diet and lifestyle going to do? Nothing. What will a statin do? Nothing for that particular. What will a fibrate, resin, or oral inhibitors? What are those? Those are the classes of medication, cholesterol medications. They're all there. Once you have that information, we look back to the chart and say, here's you. Oh, you just have this? Listen, just take some fish oil, higher dose fish oil. That's going to take care of it. If you have these 2 bad guys, where do you only see the 1-2 heart? Right here, the only thing that's therapeutic that we know so far, and it's niacin, it's a B vitamin. Then you have to do that right. You have to get the flush. Watch my videos, you'll see. But this is information worth doing instead of, let's put you on a cholesterol medicine, hope you don't have rhabdomyolysis, which is breakdown of your muscles, which includes the heart, and you need to be on CoQ10, all those things. First of all, what are the pieces you have? Do you even need to treat? Now let's let your head explode here for a minute. Okay. This is a new, I love it. So liquid biopsy, you know that if we're looking at an unusual lump or bump, something that's happening, you have to go in and get a little biopsy. You can't possibly biopsy the whole body. And even when you biopsy a tumor, you could get into an area where it's not really showing us much. We've been wanting liquid biopsies for a long time. Europe has had this about 6 or 7 years. This particular, and there's other companies, but this particular company, I'm just showing you the ones that I'm currently working with, is that they got the FDA approval for this, or FDA registration for this a few months ago. I have recently found into what a patient of mine that was being told, we thought by the radiologist and all, I had some other symptoms, but she was being told that she had a little uterine fibroid, a stalk, and that's possibly what it is. But I knew by her symptoms with breakthrough bleeding and all, I said, I'm concerned. I'm not going to wait. I ran the regular cancer markers. Nothing showed up really. I was just going to watch and wait until we got the liquid biopsy. Then we found a uterine cancer in a very, very early stage where we're doing natural treatments to watch and wait and hopefully never have to go to the extent of, surgery, chemo, and those things. So these liquid biopsies, what you need to know, it's looking for circulating tumor cells. It's highly accurate for some most recognized types of cancers, prostate and breast. They're 98 to 99% sensitive and selective. What does that mean? Highly accurate, highly. And if you've got high levels of those, then I'm going to say we need to start imaging the breast, or we need to look at their prostate. We need to look somewhere, or GI. And so now we get to look. Now, what I love about what they do, they take your tumor cells, if there are any, if there are a higher level of a certain type of tumor cell, and they plot it into this graph where somebody like me, who's a complete nerd and loves the genetics and knows the biochemical pathways, right? We can look here and say, okay, right here, I need to block that. What natural substance does this person need to be on? Oh, they can be on resveratrol. They can be. And now that would be, if all I had was this, I would be going by the literature, but the test goes farther. Let me go back down here. I'll come back up. Oh, I thought it was there. Sorry. They're also looking for what natural things with that tumor cell. So instead of just saying you have stage 2 breast cancer, we're going to try this and this, they're looking at your breast cancer cells and they're saying vitamin C is not going to do very much. They're looking at it and saying, and this is an actual patient, bromelain, which is a natural enzyme that I use for anti-inflammatory and all that, is going to help with 55% of cell death. It's going to kill 55% of those, your cells. And I'm not going by a big database and hoping something works. It's looking at the natural, or not even that, just repurposed drugs. But here, if it is bad, if it is a bad cancer, it's a stage 4, and we decide, or the patient decides, chemo is something to consider. It tells you the chemotherapies and how well they're going to work and what percentage of cell death. So if they said, okay, the only one you can do is this one, and we look at it's less than 25%, you may say, I don't want to put myself through it. Liquid biopsies, wave of the future. Even traditional oncologists know it. It's on the horizon, but now you have to pay cash for this test. Someday it'll be there. But if you're concerned, we might want to consider doing this kind of test. Now, stay on genes for a minute. There's a lot of different panels by different companies. This is just an example of one for depression, anxiety, bipolar, whatever we want to call the mental illnesses. They're looking at 24 genes, and they're looking at your pharmacogenetics. What does that mean? Which drugs are going to work with your genes and which ones are going to be a nightmare and cause problems with you. Okay, so this just as an example, if you have that MTHFR that I talked about at the beginning, if we have that, we know that we've got to use a certain form of folate. If you have these, and we know caution with these, generally, if you go in and you have a low dopamine, you have something, you go to a psychiatrist and they say, okay, take this drug. If you have this information, you could say, yeah, no, not with my genes, choose something else. Or this one, say it's going to cause me to have extreme weight gain. And if I have to do that one, I need to be on really anti-obesity intervention. So it gives you what are the best tests to do and which are the ones you don't want to do. These are just in particular going by antidepressants, just giving you an example there. And here's where it looks good. We say, okay, what could you do if you decided to do an antidepressant? I would say fix the gut first. But if you're going to go there, these are the two that might be considered. These are the ones that may not do much for you and cause more harm than good. Okay. So isn't this great? Here's pain management. If you broke your toe, you broke your leg, you had to be in the hospital. All you don't want is a side effect from a pain med they're giving you. You could look back to your report and go, yeah, no, don't do that one. Don't do that one. Do this one. So it's good information to have. All right, we're getting down to the bottom kind of here, guys, not to the bottom, but to some great information. I don't want you, and when I sit with the patient, I know which test I'm going to tell them about because I've had time with them, deeper time than what you just did with yourself. But I know already which test I'm going to tell them about. I don't show them all these tests. This is a lot. This is a lot for you guys. I just want you aware of what is existing. So bear with me here because I love this. And if you're a person that likes these kinds of things, you're loving this. If you're not, you're going, I don't want to hear anymore. Just tell me what I need to do. And that's okay, which we'll learn how to do. But here is the hormone test. This has been out maybe a couple of years now, but a lot of doctors still don't know about it. Instead of just looking at your basic hormones, we're looking a lot deeper, and I won't go too deep in detail. We already looked at this cortisol pattern. That thing I showed you with the stress response, it's on this lab. But here's what I love. We look at the beginning hormone that makes all the others downstream. This side over here, when it says androgens, that's your testosterone. That's your energy, libido, muscle. That's the side that gives us that. Over here is progesterone, and down here are all your estrogens. What we're looking at is where are they converting? Where are they going? When you get a regular lab, I just get to look up at this number and go, well, might be a little high, might be a little low. But when we can see this, is your progesterone converting to the active form for all the things we want progesterone for? Helping you sleep, helping you relax and not be anxious, or is it coming over here? Good news is we've got natural things that can help drive all of these pathways, all of them, which is great. Here, you might, if you're low in DHEA, you're not going to make enough testosterone. You're going to be tired. If you're low in DHEA, it's probably because your adrenal glands are so busy in survival mode, running from the bear, that they can't do their other job, which is make this guy. So do I want to put you on hormones, or do I want to fix the root of the problem, which is your adrenal gland? And if that's it, how do we work on your stress responses? How do we help you not be so in such a stress? Now, Love this panel. Estrogen. If you say I'm on estrogen, or I used to take it, or I never did, and I wonder if my own body's estrogen is going down bad pathways, putting me at harm, we get to see. There are other pathways, but these are the three with the most literature and have been tied. This is these three pathways right here, they're bad guys. We need to address them if there's a problem. This one has to do with detox and getting rid of the bad estrogens. This one has to do, you can see down at the bottom here, is that this particular pathway called 4-hydroxy-E1, if you're driving down that one, that is DNA damage. That is cancer, that is aging, that is something we don't want. And we're good about blocking it right here with natural means. Whether you're on hormones or not, you still have hormones. You're still making some. And this one is a genetic methylation, COMT. And so those are just things that we can do something about, and they're worth testing. And I love that test for a lot of reasons. That was the female one. This is the male one. You can see the male one breaks down that testosterone even more, seeing if they're coming down here into DHT, which could affect the prostate. And the stats are 70% of men at 70 will have prostate cancer, 80 at 80, 90 at 90. It's not even really if, it's almost when is it going to happen, but we can see this. And again, can we help it go to the correct form and not go down there and cause this damage? Men too make estrogen. And that's why on the first panel, when I said, ask your doctor to run these, and you'd say, why was estrogen on the male panel? Men have estrogen too. We all have the same hormones, just different levels. Men, if they're driving down this estrogen pathway, we're looking at prostate. We're really going to look at that. And this is prevention and treatment to be able to look. We're looking at your cortisol to your cortisone pattern. That's how well you're doing with your own anti-inflammatories, all kinds of things that help us know a lot about you. And the same test, they just added on a few new ones. They're looking at B12, B6. I don't really look at these much. I like my other markers better, but they're looking at some detox pathways. But I love this new one. It's a gut marker called indican. Remember, we were looking at above your good bug versus bad bug. This is a general marker that tells you if you have gut putrefaction or dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is your ratios are off, good bug versus bad bug. Your putrefaction is it's putrefying in there. Got a lot of bad bacteria. This tells us that number. Do we need to do the other test to start looking for which ones are they, right? It tells me your dopamine level. Dopamine is a brain neurotransmitter. It's the reward hormone. This person was low. And she came in saying, I just don't feel rewarded for anything I do. There's just no joy. I just kind of do things. I help others. I do what I think is right, but I don't get any enjoyment out of things I'm doing. She was low in dopamine. We know how to work with that. Norepinephrine, epinephrine above, that's you're running from the bear, but neuroinflammation. So we're talking about brain. And ApoE gene, that's a genetic factor there. But this is telling me, do you have inflammation, neuroinflammatory markers right now going on in that brain? Do you have it? And this is a urine test, but we're seeing the metabolites from it. And if it's high, then we start looking for the source of what's causing the inflammation back to some of these tests and making sure that inflammation is turned down, making sure that inflammation, we know it's there, and we know that it contributes to dementia, Parkinson's, MS, any Alzheimer's, any neurological degenerative disease is linked with inflammation. And this is not the neurofibrillary tangles, that we used to say, well, that was the cause of Alzheimer's. It is a piece, but now we know recently that some of those tangles are actually protective. What does that tell us? We don't know everything. We don't know everything about everything, but what we do know is that inflammation is a bad guy all the way around. And now we can see it in this same test. The other thing is telling me the melatonin. Your melatonin should be the highest about 3 hours or so before you wake up. This is measuring that time. You may say, if I take melatonin before I go to bed, if it's not a controlled release, I don't know if it's still in there when it needs to be its most high. This lets us know your waking melatonin level. And did you have enough to keep you not just asleep, but getting to deep, restorative sleep, good sleep? This is a great test. And it tells me your oxidative damage, how much DNA damage can we see with this particular marker? It's a good one. Are we within range, or do you have a lot of DNA damage going on? Those are some of my favorite tests. They are by far not an extensive list. It's not everything, but these are the ones that I think most of you might be considering. These are the ones, especially for brain, immune, and gut, which affects everything else, might be important for you to be thinking about. So you will get the link, and Tarna, I know you're going to be giving them the link here in a minute, that you'll have the link of how to order and look at all these tests. You can go to their website, learn more. They have videos. What you won't be getting from that is once you get your labs back, some will be straightforward and easy for you to figure out. Others might not be. That's where you might need to hang with me for the next set of things so I can help you through that. And then what do you do about it? What are the treatments? What are the treatments that you should consider? Either conventional medicine, alternative, or both. You know that I lean over here into the most natural that we can possibly do and find. But the first step is finding the root of the problem, and that comes back to this testing. So I hope you enjoyed this piece. I hope that you have an idea of which ones you might want to do. If not, join me on the next one, and we'll on the next webinar or event. The terminology is still not clear to me of all this, guys. I'm trying to do it for you and I'm learning. But in the next event, so I can help you personally, individually dig down, what do you really need to do? Don't run a whole bunch of tests that aren't really needed, and by your symptoms. But for now, you've got a couple of good, wonderful things suggestions that don't cost you anything that you can try. Things get better, stick with that. If they don't, you can look through these tests, and if you need more help, I am here for you. I will turn it over to Tarna now.
Wow. Thank you for helping us land that plane right there, Dr. Warden, when you said, if your mind is blown, it's okay. I'll be back.
My patients are used to it. They literally are. That's why we do a real good checklist for them when they're done that we send later of next steps, because
I saw one of your patients, and she must know you because she had her magnifying glass up. I'm like, I need a magnifying glass.
Well, and we are trying to figure out how to blow those up bigger. Tarna, we did work on that. And Sierra in my office, you're going to have this link, but it's going to be live. We're going to keep changing it, updating it, making it better. And the good news is about the link is, as I find new things, like that liquid biopsy is new, I'll be adding it to this list for you. And that's beautiful. So you'll be able to experience things as I find them and think they are worthwhile tests. But we'll try to blow it up and make it bigger.
That's so awesome. Well, but also it's individualized, right? And I know that's something you always say is individualized medicine. But there's so many of them, and I'm sure everybody's thinking, I'm just going to take that whole list to my doctor and say, run them all. But Dr. Warden's going to help us on that. Someone in the chat just sent me a direct message to share with you that said, heard you at a conference before, you're great at selecting the right tests. And that's the word that kept coming up for me is signals. What signals is your body sending? And that's what I was sharing with you guys in the chat. What of these signals? So maybe that's what will, as you debrief or digest everything Dr. Warden just shared with you, maybe start your own signal list. I think that's what I'll actually do. I'll practice what I preach.
And that's exactly what I was going to say at the end, Tarna. Exactly. That was their next step, is to make the signal list. Sorry. Right. That's okay. For their health tracking, make their health tracker list, and then look back at this and see, can you figure it out on your own? And start some. And the other thing, Tarna, I wanted to say on the list itself is that we've categorized it, which ones you can self-order, which ones you don't need a doctor for. Okay. You don't have to go back and beg and try to teach them something they may not know about. But we have the ones that you will need a doctor, and how you can try to step through that and needing a physician to help you. If you're my patient or client, obviously I'm going to help you through that. And The good news is that I usually get better pricing than just what you're going to find on the website. But for those of you who are not working with me, you will be able to order a lot of these, right? At their,
Beautiful.
whatever their standard pricing is.
And thank you, because I know that was a fear I had, was I've gone to my doctor and asked for something that I learned, and they look at you like you're crazy.
Yep.
And then you don't feel comfortable going back and asking for
Yep.
more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you for that. I'm
Yeah.
going to share again in the chat right now the mybighealth.com/tracker. Several of you have already signed up, and over half of you have already signed up for Dr. Warden's list of tests. So please make sure you save that
Yeah,
link.
you're going to want that. Yeah.
Yeah. And as Dr. Warden said, when she finds something awesome and she's a researcher and practicing this stuff every day, she's going to add it to that list. So if you want to even mark that down in your signals list. But again, that's going to be January 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Dr. Warden's going to talk to you a lot more about what are the tests you should be considering and why you should be considering those tests. This will be the beginning of Dr. Warden taking you on a journey. She will be sharing these workshops. We've been calling them workshops, events, webinars. You know, it's just a get together. It's a get together with Dr. Warden. Let's call it that. But she is incredibly passionate about opening up this forum to get to more of you outside of her area there, just in Arizona. Yes, she works with patients globally, but how awesome is it that we can come together right now in our living rooms or in our bedrooms or at our offices and have this kind of a scientist that just
I'm going to end up wearing my pajamas at some point for you guys, right?
Let's do it.
You'll be okay. I won't have to wear my lab coat. You'll know me and I can be comfortable as well.
Yep, absolutely. And one of I think one of your patients, because I've seen your name before, but I know that we want to protect each other's names here, just out of making sure we're all safe. Said, how can we share this Zoom with our peeps that so need her? Within a day or two, it'll probably take us 2 or 3 days to get this session here nice and cleaned up and edited a little bit. We will be emailing it out to you. So if you're here, that means we have your email.
Great.
We will email this to you, and you can share that with anybody that you may want, including yourself, so that you can pause, rewind, and get your magnifying glass out or zoom in or whatever. Because I know there's no way we could have all taken enough notes today with everything that you just shared with us, Dr. Warden. Thank you for that. So again, the health tracker first session. While we're live today, you get that special offer for being here and already being a part of her community, but that is mybighealth.com tracker, and that'll be January 26th for the next time that we'll be back. And then Dr. Warden, I think we're ready to start transitioning over to the private Q&A here shortly. But if there's anything else you wanted to share with us, I'll get us all situated for that.
No, I just, those of you who are not joining us on the Q&A, you'll get a lot of free information out there, that I'm trying to do as much as I can for you. It takes time to watch it all. But I don't want anybody to feel like, I don't want to leave anybody in a worry session of, I don't know what to do now. Watch that. And the Q&As are really for more individualized, as close as I can get to individualized medicine to help you on a level to really, I don't want you going out doing all these tests. I don't want you spending that kind of money. I don't want you worrying about it. Remember, stress is one of the biggest factors we're trying to get to, of not stressing. But I'm all about education and empowerment. I want you educated so you can make the choice. And then you got to de-stress, because then you're going to go, I know a lot about myself. I've learned how to listen to my body signals. I'm not going to ignore them. And I know what I need to do. So, I can help you as much as I can for the things, what I would be suggesting for my patients. That'll be in the future, to say that once you get your labs done, our goal is that you join us next time. We really lock in, what do you really need to do? Which ones should you be doing and not spend a lot of money? And then after that, it will be each test. And we haven't locked it down. And Turner, you're probably going to get mad at me for saying it, because I don't want to promise it. I know. But what I want to do is that once you get your labs done, then I want you to have access to me again for that test, so I can run you through what it really means, really understand the results, and what I would be suggesting for you to do. That's the piece that I can't see all of you one-on-one. as patients. But that's the piece that I would like to do. And it'll be fun in a group because your own questions help other people. So that's the thought of what I'm trying to build here with this health tracker group of you, is helping always educate you, keep you up to leading edge, scientifically based, not just testing, but treatments. And the treatments will be in a different section. But first step, I need some of those labs done sometimes to know. Okay.
I think on behalf of the audience, just a big thank you for that, Dr. Warden, because I'm sure that that's what everybody is feeling. I know that's what's coming up for me personally, and I know I can't talk with you guys too much here on Zoom in terms of chat, but the idea of what you said today that I wanted to just maybe underline for all of us is, when there's something here on this test, there's other ways back here. We can help you with natural ways to block that, because none of us, I think, are, you know, raising our hand and saying, I want to take more medicine or anything along those lines. We're saying, well, but how did I get here? And how can I start taking those steps to get back to feeling good, getting rid of some of those symptoms? And of course, yeah, I guess every day we all age, darn it. And every day that we keep adding to the calendar, more of those little things pop up. So thank you for that, Dr. Warden.
We won't
And
stop
just
the
on
aging,
behalf.
but we definitely can decelerate it and have a good quality of life for as long as we're supposed to live. I see a couple of faces on here, people I know that are in their 80s and 90s that are amazing. And guess why they may be? Because they're health trackers. They learn, they're still learning about their bodies. We all need to take that as a clue of, you never, ever stop looking for a way to be healthy and live as long as you can and should live, and never turn it over to a pill to make a difference for you, because it won't. But I thank everybody for being here. And I really, really think every day about my motto about educate, empower, and enlighten. And that is truly, people say, what do you do? And I say, that's it. And then they say, what do you specialize in medicine? I say, health. It doesn't matter if it's cancer. It doesn't matter if it's a professional athlete, a menopausal woman, an aging 89-year-old. It doesn't matter. It's individualized medicine. It's finding what's causing your signs that your body's sending you. So I feel blessed and honored to be part of your journey, your health journey, all of you, whether you're a client, a patient, or you're starting to follow me on here. I'm so glad to have you, and I'm grateful for it. And I am honored that you would be here this long with me and listening. So keep listening. I've got a lot more in this head.